Coronation Street's Todd Grimshaw is set to confront a fresh wave of emotional distress following his traumatic experience involving Theo Silverton, as early warning signs of inner turmoil and anger begin to emerge. Indications of psychological strain are now becoming increasingly noticeable. Todd Grimshaw is expected to undergo renewed emotional suffering in Coronation Street as a direct consequence of his ordeal with Theo Silverton, with the much-loved resident starting to display troubling signs of suppressed rage after enduring deeply disturbing abuse. For several months, Todd was trapped in a toxic and abusive relationship with Theo, who initially used manipulation and coercive control tactics to dominate him. Over time, the situation escalated significantly, ultimately culminating in Theo launching a brutal physical attack on Todd. Todd eventually succeeded in fleeing from the flat where he had been held under control, and he later received support and assistance from both Sarah Platt and Kit Green. In the aftermath, he made the decision to report Theo to the authorities. However, the antagonist has not yet faced any form of legal punishment or official consequences for his violent actions. In forthcoming episodes of the ITV drama, Todd will visit the Rover's Return Inn to share a quiet drink alongside his close companion, George Shuttleworth. During their conversation, Todd opens up about the trauma he has endured and gradually begins to recognize the lasting emotional impact it has had on his well-being. Todd also finds himself increasingly frustrated and angry that Theo has not yet been brought to justice or held accountable for his crimes. Although George attempts to comfort and reassure him, questions remain as to whether Todd's growing anger could eventually spiral into something far more serious and potentially dangerous. These developments follow directly after the soap's intense Murder Week storyline, in which Theo is listed among 5 possible victims, alongside Megan Walsh, Jody Ramsey, Carl Webster, and Maggie Driscoll. At this stage, the identity of the deceased individual remains a mystery, with the truth scheduled to be revealed during Friday's episode. Betsy Swain will stumble upon the lifeless body shortly after the wedding of Carla Connor and Lisa Swain, an event that will trigger the beginning of a much larger and more complex storyline. Our Coronation Street insider explains that Todd's comments could be understood in 2 very different ways, reveals a source connected to the show. If Theo has already died by this stage of the narrative, then he will never face a court trial for his actions, and Todd will be denied the opportunity to publicly expose the truth in a legal setting. On the other hand, if Theo is still alive, this suggests that law enforcement authorities are still struggling to gather sufficient evidence to build a strong case against him due to the lack of concrete proof. Viewers will ultimately need to keep watching throughout the week to discover whether Theo is in fact the unidentified body or if the mystery continues. Coronation Street broadcasts a life-threatening and highly volatile clash between Maggie Driscoll and Megan Walsh in an advance release available on ITVX. Caution: this article includes spoiler details from Thursday's upcoming episode of Coronation Street, scheduled to air at 8:30 p.m. on ITV1, while also being currently accessible for streaming via ITVX. Megan Walsh and Maggie Driscoll find themselves in serious peril as both women risk plunging to their deaths following a tense and explosive confrontation in Coronation Street. Time is rapidly running out for one resident of Weatherfield as the storyline builds toward the shocking discovery of a lifeless body by Betsy Swain in the next episode. The episode begins dramatically, with Megan being forcefully pulled from the Viaduct Bistro van after being abducted by a revenge-driven Eva Price, alongside the Battersby sisters, Toya Battersby and Leanne Battersby. Their intention was to pressure Megan into admitting that she had abused teenager Will Driscoll, yet she continued to insist that his claims were entirely fabricated and that no inappropriate behavior had ever taken place. Eva attempted to reassure Megan by suggesting she could leave, assume a new identity, and start over elsewhere, though she warned that she would never truly escape the consequences. Believing she had gained the upper hand in the situation, Megan attempted to manipulate the sisters by exposing that Leanne had spoken about Toya's troubled marriage to Imran Habib, even going so far as to accuse her of being responsible for his death. Enraged by these accusations, and despite previously trying to maintain some control during the heated exchange, Toya ultimately lost her composure, striking Megan and causing her nose to bleed. Megan then stormed out of the salon flat with the intention of reporting the assault to the authorities. However, Kit Green was distracted at the time and failed to properly address her complaint, as he had just uncovered that Theo Silverton had been abusing Todd Grimshaw. While making her way through the ginnel, Megan overheard a revealing and significant conversation between Maggie and her former daughter-in-law, Melanie. It soon became clear that Melanie had maintained contact with her brother-in-law Finley, who had recounted the shocking incident in which Maggie killed her husband Alan by pushing him down a flight of stairs. Megan listened carefully to every detail, secretly recording the entire conversation as evidence. After Melanie departed from the scene, Megan approached Maggie and initially pretended to offer comfort and support. However, the situation quickly deteriorated as Megan revealed that she was fully aware of Maggie's deadly secret and accused her outright of being a murderer. Before Maggie could respond or explain her side of the story, her son Ben called her back inside the Rover's return inn. She was forced to leave Megan behind and subsequently witnessed Eva and Leanne being arrested by the police. Later that evening, Maggie tracked Megan down at the precinct, where it appeared that Megan was preparing to flee Manchester in a hurry. Maggie demanded that the incriminating recording be erased, and further accused Megan of lying about losing her baby, claiming instead that she had chosen to have an abortion. Although Megan initially attempted to walk away from the confrontation, Maggie remained determined and unwilling to back down without a struggle. The sound of a door slamming signaled that their conflict was far from over, setting the stage for the continuation of their violent clash in the next dramatic episode. Could it be that one of them will ultimately fall from the elevated walkway at the precinct during the impending showdown? Coronation Street viewers are convinced that they have already figured out which character meets their end following the intense and explosive confrontation between Megan Walsh and Maggie Driscoll. After the dramatic showdown involving Megan Walsh and Maggie Driscoll, fans are increasingly certain that they have identified the victim, especially as it has already been revealed that a shocking murder is set to shake the cobbles of Weatherfield. Back in February, it was officially announced that a death would take place in Weatherfield during this particular month, teased through a flash-forward episode of the ITV soap. In that forward-looking scene, viewers watched as Betsy Swain was questioned by police detectives regarding her discovery of a dead body belonging to someone she personally knew. During those scenes, the visibly shaken teenager recounted that she had been attending the wedding of her mother, Lisa Swain, to Carla Connor. She explained that after leaving the celebration and making her way into town, she unexpectedly stumbled upon the horrifying sight of the lifeless body.